Welcome to the Texas High School Football Coaches Show on Lone Star Gridiron. I'm Chris Daly, and it's my belief that the men that make up the fraternity of Texas high school football coaches are much more than a bunch of thick-necked guys with whistles. They do so much more than teach technique and the X's and O's of football. They take young boys and change them into young men of character. They get kids to believe in themselves, to trust others, and to put others ahead of themselves. Texas high school football coaches are unique in how they impact the lives of these athletes as well as the generations those kids touch. In this show, I sit down with a different Texas high school football coach each time and learn about them. Not their record, not their on-field accomplishments, but who they are and what they believe and what it means to be part of the greatest sport in the greatest state. Hey, welcome back to the Lone Star Gridiron Texas High School Football Coaches Show, Season 3, Episode 9. Today we have Coach Mike Spradlin from Magnolia. But before we get to him, I want to introduce a new sponsor to the show, QBIQ. That is football's only pre-snap reading system, QBIQ. It works with 100% of quarterbacks and 100% of offense. The QBIQ concepts are easy to learn, and your quarterback will have pro anticipation of what works and what doesn't before the snap of the ball. Look for the ad on the show notes page. You're listening to the LSG Sports Network, the authority on Texas high school football.
Hey, did you play Texas high school football? If you did, you're part of an elite group, the Brotherhood of Texas high school football. All football players, past and present, who have ever suited up in the Lone Star State are eligible. Go to LoneStarGridiron.com/brotherhood. And thank you for the part you played in the greatest sport in the greatest state.
All right, everybody, join me in welcoming Coach Mike Spradlin, the athletic director at Magnolia ISD, to the show. Coach, how are you doing?
Doing good this morning, Chris. You?
Oh, I'm doing great. I get to talk Texas high school football, so, you know, that kind of makes my day every time it starts that way.
Well, that makes two of us, man. I always enjoy doing that, no question.
Nice. So, if you've listened to previous seasons of the show or previous episodes, what we do, we don't take a look at how your team is doing right now, you know, or either of your teams in this case, but we take a look at your history. We kind of get from when you got that spark that you wanted to be involved in coaching, whether it's playing in high school, and then we go stop by stop everywhere you went up to today. So I'm going to shut up and let you fill us in.
Well, unfortunately, that may take a while, man, at my age, and there's been a few of those stop-by-stops. But, Chris, I grew up in Dallas and played my high school ball at Dallas Carter High School in Oak Cliff, and that was a great experience for me in that it was very diverse and you know, a great place to be. I finished there, and my last football season was 72, and I went to the University of Houston in 1973. Played football there for Coach Yeoman, and we were fortunate enough my senior year to win a Southwest Conference championship in 76. And started coaching as an assistant coach at Brazosport High School. Left there, went to Abilene Cooper as an assistant, and left with head coach Overton there. And we went to Irving, MacArthur, and I spent 2 or 3 years there with him. Mm-hmm. Got out of coaching for about 5 years, Chris, and was in the oil business out in West Texas, and wound up getting a head football job at Midland Christian. Was a good way for me to get back into coaching. I can't tell you how much I missed it and missed the relationships and the adrenaline rush, you know, doing that thing. And so, you know, I was the head coach there for a couple of years, and then went to Navasota for a year. And they went through a superintendent change, and I decided to go ahead and make a move to Westwood High School in Round Rock as the head football coach there. did that thing, left there, went to University of Houston with Coach Browse as an offensive line coach, and then just left there, went back to Abilene Cooper as the head football coach in 2006, and then left there, went to Temple in 2010, and here I am in Magnolia as the AD. The last 2 years, Chris, have been just athletic director for me, and I haven't coached, so I'm in that part of my lifespan, I guess, or my career. So I'm coaching coaches now. That's it in a nutshell.
I was going to say, you say just doing athletic director, and like it's not that big of a job, but it's a pretty big one.
It's a huge one. It's different, Chris. You know, I tell everybody all the time, you know, my hours are similar. I mean, I don't have the weekend hours that I used to have when I was coaching, but there's, you know, there's a lot going on in the job I do, especially with 2 high schools, and of course, you know, we've got right at 100 plus coaches, and you know, so I'm getting a chance to do that. But Chris, the stress factor's about zero compared to what it is trying to win football games on Friday night. So that part of it is not there, but there's plenty to do. I can assure you that.
Nice. So talk about those coaches. Some of the coaches in your career that influenced you, that kind of directed you or gave you some shots that really were influential.
You know, it's interesting. I can't even remember really not wanting to coach. I got. You know, I really didn't start playing ball till I was a 7th grader. And I just loved it, and I just, somewhere in that experience, you know, at a young age, I knew I wanted to stay involved, and I had a guy named Don Todd, who was the defensive coordinator at the University of Houston, was also my line coach at Carter High School, and he was the guy that made me want to be, you know, a coach and do it right. And you know, he loved us and had a tremendous impact on my style, if you will. You know, and then probably the guy that influenced me later in my career, particularly at my stops at Cooper and at Temple, and even now, was Art Browse. You know, Art was a teammate of mine in '76 on that championship team that we had, and he and I stayed close through the years, but coaching with him, you know, kind of really influenced the way I thought about the way I approached kids and the way I approached, you know, my job. And I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, you know, I've always been a pretty serious guy and pretty intense, but it made me want to have more fun, I guess, is the way to put it. And I felt like I needed to make it more fun for everybody, not just myself. And so that became kind of a theme for me, was let's enjoy what we're doing, let's work hard, you know, let's put the process in and be champions, but we can also have fun doing that. It doesn't have to be, even though it is a grind's not a bad word. But even though it is a grind, it doesn't have to be a chore, if you will. You know, there's a family atmosphere and a love for each other, and you know, all those things that we all know. And those were the things that I feel like I took with me my last 2 stops, and even today. Nice.
You mentioned grind, and there's probably no better example of grind in football than the line play. And talk to me a little bit about, coming from that background of being a lineman, the importance of that maybe a lot of fans overlook.
You know, I always thought, Chris, as a head football coach, it was a plus for me, because I really connected with our linemen. You know, and a lot of times, and I'm not saying that guys that didn't play on the offensive line can't do that, but sometimes those guys get forgotten a little bit, if you know what I mean. And I always loved those guys, man. I loved what they did, and we made it a huge priority for us everywhere I was as a head coach. Those guys were a big part of what we do, and we gave them a lot of credit for what we do. And I felt like my ability to connect with those guys probably helped some. You know, we had some good offensive lines through the years, and I always had a lot of fun with those cats, and enjoyed being around them because I knew what it was like to be one.
Nice. So would you say linemen are born or made?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a made thing. I think there's personality traits with offensive linemen. I think those guys, they don't necessarily, they're not me guys typically. Right. They're team guys through and through because they don't get a lot of the glory and a lot of the credit. Although I think, you can certainly make it that way. But I think, it's I always said this, line play, offensive line play particularly, is kind of unnatural. I mean, it's a very learned process because, it's not a reaction thing. It's an action. And so playing defense is a little bit different. But being on the offensive line is all about technique and it's all about strength and it's all about, quickness and kind of outsmarting that guy a little bit. So I think it's a very much a learned process, Chris.
Nice. Well, one of the things we focus on here is the impact this sport has on young men's lives. You could talk about some of the important, things you've learned about coaching as it applies to that.
Well, I mean, it's why I got in it, and I don't think that's overused, by the way. I mean, our culture that we've tried to establish, and Chris, I was fortunate. I mean, when I left Abilene Cooper as an assistant and went with Ray Overton, our head football coach there at MacArthur High School, I mean, they were coming off of some bad years and a winless season, and we were able to turn that thing a little bit. And to me, there's a process that goes with that. I mean, we kind of did the same thing when we went to Cooper in 2006. They'd been through 2 or 3 years of bad years, and there was kind of a recent winning back in 3 or 4 years before we got there. So, but we were kind of able to reestablish that. Did it at the University of Houston with Coach Browse, and then we're able to do that at Temple. I mean, they'd been through 12 years and only had 2 winning seasons. So we were able to kind of get that thing flipped. And I think the way you do that, and I don't think it's an overused word, is just establishing in your winning culture a love and a work ethic, for that. A love for each other. It's that age old, coaches got to love players, and players got to love coaches, and players got to love players, and coaches got to love coaches, and if the players see coaches having fun and loving each other and loving them, and, then I think that culture, begets a winning attitude and a winning style. It's the hard work thing is huge, in that, I think that teaches you something. I've used it all my life, the things I learned, from the guys I played for that taught me right. And it's all about that grind and about, if you invest in something, then you won't accept, failure. And it's, I think that's a big part of life. I think I've always felt like football was the greatest laboratory in the world to teach a boy how to be a man. I really do, and I always believe that, and I still believe it.
Nice. So now let's focus in on Texas. And somebody's coming to you from somewhere in the Northeast, and they ask you, Coach, what is the deal with Texas high school football? What makes it different? How do you answer that?
Well, I mean, I think partly what makes Texas high school football different, Chris, is that we're all educators. There's a professionalism, and I want to be careful. I'm not suggesting that someone that's coaching, in Missouri is not a professional. But what I mean is we are professional educators. We go to school to learn how to teach kids. Now that should translate into to being able to coach. It doesn't always, but it should. So I think when you look at the way the Texas education system is set up, with us being teachers first, if you will, coaches second, we're not running off to a day job. We're there all day long. We're involved in the communities. We're involved in the schools. We're more than just football coaches, or more than just softball coaches or baseball coaches or whatever it is. we're a part of the process of the educational process in every district that we're in. So I think that starts translating into a better product, in my opinion. And for whatever reason, this thing's grown and grown and grown and grown. And I think part of that's because of what I'm saying. I think the guys I'm around, the guys I know, the guys that taught me took, the life thing. That's what we were talking about earlier, the life thing seriously. I mean, they took the fact that we were not just teaching kids how to play ball, we were teaching them how to be men. And I think that's still going on today, and I think that's why it's valuable not only to our kids but to our communities.
Nice. So now, as athletic director, now you're hiring coaches. You're not so much teaching kids. Talk about the difference there. Maybe what you've learned about hiring a coach that you couldn't see while you were a coach.
Well, it's for me, and by the way, the missing pieces in AD is for me, the thing I probably miss the most is I have a relationship with some kids. It's just different. I mean, I don't see them on a daily basis. I don't. But so now I feel like my kids are my coaches. It's a I want to mentor them, create a culture here, where things are the way I was able to do it, when I was a head coach myself. And so I think, what we're looking for here is someone that, the work ethic part of it. I mean, there's got to be you got to find people that no job's too big, no job's too small. You can't, the ego thing, it doesn't work very well, when you're trying to establish a culture that says we're all in this together. So, I'm trying to find guys that believe in doing things right and believe in hard work and believe in that way that goes. And we're fortunate here. Interestingly, Chris, Magnolia High School, the head coach there is Starling Doty. He's also our athletic coordinator there. Starling played for me at the University of Houston, and then I hired him in his first job out at Abilene Cooper. So we've got a tremendous relationship. And then at Magnolia West, I was able to hire J.D. Berna, who J.D. and I coached together for, some 13-odd years. He was with me at Cooper and at Temple. So, we've got a relationship. We think the same, and those guys are both our coordinators, athletic coordinators at both high schools. So, we feel like we've got kind of our thing going a little bit, and the way we think and the way we do things. And that's been a big benefit for me, Chris.
Nice. It's good to talk quickly a little bit about that brotherhood that is those coaches and those relationships that you see is I see really strong across the state. I don't really see any coaches who hate other coaches.
There's not. I mean, I've told people all along. I mean, we're competitive now. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I wasn't anybody I didn't want to beat on a Friday night. But there's a respect there. It's tough enough. The job's tough enough without making it tough on each other, and so that brotherhood has to be there. I'm real fortunate, Chris. There's 8 guys that I've worked that worked, with me the last 10 years that are head coaches now across the state, and that's a big deal to me. I mean, I'm enjoying watching those guys be successful with some of the same things that I felt like we were successful with, at our stops. And it's been a lot of fun watching those guys. Ben McGehee out at Sweetwater and Jared Womack at Jim Ned, Todd Mabus at Abilene Cooper, Scott Stewart at Temple, Starling and JD here. Those things have been a lot of fun for me. And then some other guys that, Mike Blesh was a guy I coached and was our offensive line coach at Temple, and he's now the offensive line coach at Tulsa. So you get to see those things when you get to be my age. Those guys, those young guys, keep going out, and then it's kind of fun to watch that thing happen.
Nice. So moving forward, you keep mentioning your age. You're not that old.
Well, I'm not.
Or else I'm real old.
I feel like I got a bunch of years left, but I'm getting up there a little bit anyway.
So moving forward, what goals, plans, aspirations do you have left?
Well, I mean, I I think my goals and aspirations are to continue to, when I came here, it's not like things here. We've got a great administration. Our superintendent's unbelievable. We've got great principals here and great coaches here. So, I think we're just, it's all about culture is kind of an overused word in today's world, but it is about it. We want to create a championship culture, if you will, a winning culture that doesn't sacrifice, the well-being of student athletes and coaches, by the way, in that process. And so, I think for me, it's kind of a daily, I really enjoy, I don't sit in the office a lot, Chris. I like to get out and get around and see my coaches and be around kids and watch practices. And, I always tell them I'm not there to evaluate. I'm there because I love it, because I love being around it, love watching you do your thing and love watching you do the way you do things. There's parts of this job that, I got to sit in here and push some paper around every now and then, but my superintendent and our superintendent gives us gives us freedom to do the job the way we see fit. So I enjoy Friday nights because I'm invested in our guys. I enjoy watching our basketball coaches on Tuesdays and Fridays, our softball coaches up because I'm invested in them. I don't just want them to win because they're in Magnolia. I want them to win because they're good people and they're doing it right.
Awesome. That is beautiful, Coach Mike Spradlin. I want to thank you for taking some time out of your schedule, sitting down and sharing your story with us.
You bet, Chris. My pleasure, and I'm flattered and appreciate the job you guys do selling high school sports and the way you do things. We need one thing I've enjoyed about today's culture and with radio and all that and all the internet stuff is that our kids are getting out there, and I appreciate you guys doing that.
You bet. You're listening to the LSG Sports Network, the authority on Texas high school football.
Football's only pre-snap reading system, QBIQ. It works with 100% of quarterbacks and 100% of offenses. The QBIQ concepts are easy to learn. You will have pro anticipation of what works and what doesn't before the snap of the ball. Defenses become irrelevant. The QBIQ process is simple. Learn the concepts, then work your playbook through the QBIQ training book. Get the full QBIQ system. Get tomorrow's newspaper today.
Hey, coaches, we want to tell your story as well. So get in touch with us, and we'll schedule a time to record your interview so we can add your history, your insight to what we hope will be an amazing collection of wit and wisdom from Texas high school football coaches.
This show is brought to you by the book, All I Need to Know I Learned from My Texas High School Football Coach. A handbook of wisdom for parents, young people, and yes, even coaches. Head over to www.learnedfromcoach.com and order your copy to support sharing the stories of these great coaches and leaders. That's learnedfromcoach.com.